Tonight, I want you to relax your breathing, let your shoulders fall gently, and allow the quiet to settle around you. Because the story you're about to hear isn't fiction. It isn't a legend created to scare children or a tale passed down to entertain. It is something real, something documented, something that left investigators speechless for more than a century. This is the chilling case of Hinterkaifeck, one of the most disturbing unsolved tragedies in history, a real abandoned farm mystery that still whispers through the forests of Bavaria. So close your eyes, slow your thoughts, and come with me to a silent farmhouse buried deep in the German countryside, where the snow remembers every footprint, and the walls once echoed with footsteps that did not belong. Let's begin. And now, settle deeper into your pillow. Take a slow breath. Let me guide you to that lonely farm where silence had a life of its own. Where the shadows moved when no one was watching. This is the full story of the shadows of Hinterkaifeck. The shadows of Hinterkaifeck, real abandoned farm mystery. There is a stretch of lonely countryside in Bavaria where the winters are long, the nights are heavy, and the forests seem older than time itself. Among those dark woods, where the wind moves like a whisper between the pines, there once stood a farmstead that no longer exists. Its name was Hinterkaifeck, a place that survived in memory only because silence and tragedy carved it into history. People who grew up in the region say that the land there feels strange, quiet in a way that presses against your ears, as though sound itself hesitates to cross it. Even animals behaved differently around the property. Horses would halt at the tree line. Dogs would whine and refuse to go near. Birds avoided landing on the rooftops. This is the story of that place, a real abandoned farm mystery that remains unsolved more than a century later. Chapter 1: The Land That Didn't Want to Be Noticed. Long before 1922, Hinterkaifeck was already known for its isolation. It was surrounded by forests that muffled footsteps and fields that stretched like waves of pale gold during summer. The nearest neighbors lived half a mile away, separated by quiet paths and dense woods. The Gruber family, Andreas, his wife Kazilia, their daughter Victoria, and her two small children, Kazilia and Joseph, rarely saw visitors. They had their routines, their livestock, their work, and their quiet evenings. But in the winter before the tragedy, things began to shift. And it started with sounds. Not loud sounds, nothing dramatic, but subtle ones that blended into the night as if they belonged there. Footsteps where no one should be walking. Soft creaks from the attic. Faint thuds above the ceiling when the family sat quietly after supper. It seemed harmless at first. Old houses creak. Wooden beams shift. My scuttle. The explanations were always simple, logical. Until the night Andreas Gruber woke in the dark and heard something unmistakable. The sound of a person crossing the attic floor, step by slow step. He climbed the ladder with a lantern in hand. The glow flickered across the beams, revealing nothing but dust, old tools, and shadows that fled from the light. He told himself it was his imagination. He told himself he had been dreaming. But deep down, Andreas knew something was wrong. He was not a man easily scared. He was stern, strict, someone who didn't tolerate nonsense. Yet even he couldn't shake the feeling that something was living in the house besides the family. He said nothing. Not yet. Chapter 2: Footsteps in the Snow. The next sign came with a heavy snowfall in early March. The kind that blankets everything in white silence. On that morning, Andreas walked outside to do his chores and noticed something odd just beyond the barn. Footprints. Human footprints. They came from the direction of the forest, winding toward the house, straight, deliberate, one after the other. But what disturbed him most was not that someone had walked onto the farm. It was that no footprints led back into the woods. He followed the trail, his boots sinking into the fresh snow. The prints reached the barn door. Then, nothing. No prints going out. No sign of someone leaving. Inside the house, nothing had been disturbed. Nothing was missing. Windows were locked. Doors were closed. Still, the discovery left a coldness in his chest. He told his wife later that night. But she urged him not to frighten the children. Maybe the snow had drifted and covered the returning tracks. Maybe someone had wandered by and left quickly. They tried to believe it. They tried to sleep. But the silence that night felt thicker than before, as if someone stood just beyond the walls, listening to their breaths. Chapter 3: The Forest Watcher. A few days later, neighbors saw a figure standing where the sunlight met the tree line. The figure didn't move. Didn't gesture. Didn't speak. He simply watched the farm. When someone approached, he slipped into the trees and disappeared. No one told the Grubers. Life in isolated places often means small warnings are ignored until they no longer can be. Chapter 4: The Maid's Terror. The family's maid, Maria, had only been working there for a short time when she approached Victoria one morning with trembling hands and wide, frightened eyes. "There is something wrong with this house," she whispered. She wouldn't sleep at night. Not because of dreams but because she felt someone was walking in the attic. She swore she heard breathing through the walls when she passed through the hall at night. She said she felt a presence when she worked alone in the kitchen. She begged to leave. Andreas dismissed her fears, but she left anyway. Her final words were, "I don't think you're alone here." For a while, the family had no maid at all. And during those days, the sounds in the attic grew louder. Chapter 5: The Keys That Went Missing. In late March, Victoria discovered that the house keys had vanished. Every key to the doors was missing. They searched the entire house, overturned drawers, lifted blankets, emptied cabinets. Nothing. Not a single key was found. They replaced the locks, but it didn't help the growing dread. The sounds continued. Footsteps. Soft ones. Pacing at night. Shifting weight on the floorboards above them. And every night, the children woke crying, saying they had nightmares. Everyone tried to sleep. Everyone tried not to listen. But no one could explain how a locked house could sound so alive. Chapter 6: The New Maid Arrives. On March 31, Maria Baumgartner, the new maid, arrived. She had only been there a few hours. Her bags were barely unpacked. She met the family, settled into her room, and tried to convince herself she would like it there. She would not survive the night. Chapter 7: The Barn. The evening was ordinary. Dinner was simple. The children went to bed early. Maria stayed in her room, probably nervous, probably tired. Sometime after midnight, the barn door creaked open. No one knows what lured the first family member outside. Maybe the animals were restless. Maybe the dogs barked. Maybe they heard something. But someone went to the barn. And whatever was there waited in the dark. One by one, the family was drawn outside. The killer didn't rush. He attacked each person with a level of calm that chilled investigators later. The barn floor preserved the horror footprints, blood patterns, signs of struggle. Inside the house, the children slept. Maria slept. Until someone entered. Chapter 8: The House of Silence. What makes Hinterkaifeck truly terrifying is not only the murders. It is what happened afterward. 4 days. Someone lived in that house. Neighbors noticed smoke coming from the chimney. A mailman delivered letters to the farm and saw food had been eaten. Footprints in the snow changed. The animals were fed. Even the cows were milked. It was as if the house continued its routine but without its family. Someone kept the silence alive. Someone moved inside the rooms where the family used to sleep. Someone walked through the hallways and sat at the kitchen table as though they belonged there. No one knows how long the killer stayed. No one knows what he did at night, in the attic, in the children's room, or in the dark hallways lit only by moonlight through old wooden shutters. But when the bodies were discovered days later, the killer was gone. Like a shadow dissolving into the woods. Chapter 9: The Investigation. Police were baffled. Everything about the case defied logic. There were clues, too many clues. The killer left fingerprints. He left tracks. He left hair, fibers, evidence of meals eaten. But nothing led to any suspect. Everyone in the nearby villages was questioned. Suspicion fell on soldiers, travelers, neighbors, strangers, even family acquaintances. No one ever confessed. No motive was ever found. The strongest, most chilling theory was simple. The killer had lived in the house before the murders, hiding in the attic, for days or even weeks. The footsteps. The missing keys. The strange noises. The nightmares. The presence the maid had felt. Everything pointed toward someone who had blended into the shadows and moved only when the family slept. Chapter 10: The Farm That Vanished. Years later, the farm was demolished. Locals refused to go near it. Even workers felt uneasy on the land. They said the silence there felt unnatural. Visitors sometimes reported hearing things, soft footsteps in the grass, or a brief whisper carried by the wind when no one else was around. Whether these are just stories or memories impressed upon a quiet landscape, no one knows. A simple wooden cross now stands on the spot where the house once stood. A cross for the family. A cross for the tragedy. A cross for the mystery. Some say the land still remembers. Some say the wind carries the echo of footsteps long after the farm disappeared. And some believe the killer never truly left. That the forest swallowed him, just as it seemed to swallow the truth. Chapter 11: The Shadows That Remain. Hinterkaifeck is now a legend, not a loud one, not a story shouted across towns or dramatized by movies. No. It is a quiet story. A story that settles deep in the bones, the way cold winter air does. A story of a place isolated not only by distance, but by fate. Because long after the tragedy, Long after the investigations were abandoned. Long after the last pieces of the farm rotted away. The silence stayed. And in that silence, people swear they can still feel a presence. Not evil. Not angry. Just watching. As if someone is still up there. Walking slowly across the attic floor. Waiting for another night. Just as cold. Just as dark. To wake again. And that is why Hinterkaifeck remains one of the world's most haunting real abandoned farm mystery tales, a reminder that sometimes, the quietest places hide the darkest stories, and sometimes, the shadows are not empty at all. As the years passed, the farmhouse was torn down, the wood reclaimed by the forest, the land left undisturbed. But silence still clings to that place. Some say the wind there sounds like footsteps. Some say the trees seem to watch you. Some say the land remembers every moment the killer walked its soil. And maybe, just maybe, the one who lived in the attic, the one who fed the animals, the one who walked the halls in silence, never truly left at all. Thank you for listening. And until next time, sleep well. And stay safe.